Look, man, nobody who the Eagles wanted at the top of their list wants this job. Nobody wanted the job. So here's how it happened. We heard right at the front, and I think the Eagles' actions represented this as well, that Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll were at the top of their list. That's what Diana Rossini said. I think some of the local reporters said Mike McDaniel, Brian Daboll at the top of their list. So Mike McDaniel wanted no parts of this. It wanted no parts. They couldn't even get a real interview. And I know the reports are out now that they had a Zoom last week.
No.
We saw what happens with the Phillies in the Zoom. No.
Zoom's canceled.
Yeah. You interview an offensive coordinator candidate. A Zoom is a courtesy.
Yeah.
It is not a real meeting. So I don't care what anybody says. They did not have a real interview with him. The guy decided he was looking at Tampa. He was looking at San Diego. Or I keep saying San Diego. Was looking at Los Angeles. Was not looking at here. So then we have Brian Daboll, right? So Brian Daboll, not quite as highly regarded as Mike McDaniel, but still, worked with Jalen Hurts, has a previous relationship with Nick Sirianni, and he had a real interview yesterday, we heard, and within 24 hours of that real interview, it turned out that I understand he might want to go to Buffalo if he becomes head coach. That makes sense. But also that he would also rather be the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans. So either one of two things happened yesterday, Ike. Either he did it as a courtesy out of respect to the Eagles and Sirianni, and he never really had an intention of coming here, or they said something in there that turned him off. Brian Daboll also crossed off the list. So in my opinion, my friend, I told you I'm on one. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
a lot of caffeine.
Go ahead. No, I'm digesting what you're saying. Yeah.
Because I hear from, I heard a little from Giglio. This is Jalen Hurts, and then I hear from other people. It's the weather, it's the fans, and then I hear from other people. It's Howie. The truth is, throw the fans thing to the side. Brian Daboll was a head coach.
Fans thing.
Yes. Yeah. He was a head coach in New York. He has Buffalo with the bigger lunatics than we are. Trust me, it has nothing to do with the fans. It really is. It's not an either-or situation with Jalen and the front office, the organization. I think it's both. So organizationally, I think it is two things organizationally. The first thing is, if you're an offensive coordinator and you look at the Eagles and you realize they just hired their Golden Boy is the wrong thing to say, but their guy, an internal guy that had been there for 3 or 4 years, the right-hand man of Nick Sirianni, Kevin Petullo, walks into this situation with a broken-down offensive line, a wide receiver that hated the quarterback, a running game that didn't work, and they put it all on him. So if you're an offensive coordinator, you go, wow, if they would do that to Petullo, who was their guy, what would happen to me? The second thing organizationally is that I think anyone, whether it's a coach or a player or in your regular job, when you go somewhere, you want to be able to grow, that place will grow you, that the leadership there wants you to grow. But they have shown in Philadelphia that you are a cog in the wheel of Howie and Mr. Lurie, that you are a head coach. You're only going to get so much power if you're here. And if you ask for too much power like Doug did, you're out of there. Or you can be like Nick and you can just sort of take your medicine and do it, but they're not invested in the growth of you here. They would rather replace you than let you grow. And then the second thing is Jalen. It is Jalen. I'm going to put his limitations on the field to the side for a moment because every quarterback has limitations. Every single one. He's not a perfect quarterback. There are no perfect quarterbacks. But what I will also say is if you're an offensive coordinator and you're coming into a situation where this guy, a year and a half ago, said that the offense is going to look the way he wants it to look. But then when the offense isn't good, all of a sudden, he's just following orders of the coaches. Right? He's not running because KP didn't put it in the plan. Mm-hmm. So is that a guy, is this an organization that you want to risk the future of your career with? Is that a quarterback that you want to risk the future of your career with? And this is the consequence. The consequence to allowing Jalen Hurts to sort of run wild publicly or sort of have his say and throw people under the bus, that's one part of the consequence. And the other thing is a consequence of saying that you as a head coach can only grow so much here, right? Yeah. You're only going to get so much responsibility. And I think, are they going to be able to hire an offensive coordinator? Sure. But if you're going to go into something like they do with players, we want the A.J. Brown level of wide receiver. We want the Saquon Barkley level of running back. When we aim for a trade for a quarterback, we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson, the biggest one. When they go to do it with coaches, it ain't going to work. because those guys do not see that opportunity here. And I think it hurt them in this situation, and I think everyone has a hand in it, from the front office to Jalen to everybody.
So here's where I'm at with this. I think you make some valid points. You raise some good questions, despite what Jake Rosenberg may think about questions being asked about the Eagles' offensive coordinator situation. I think it's a valid question. Only time will tell. I'll just say that. Only time will tell. I think the Eagles have earned the benefit of the doubt of trusting their process and their final decision-making. It's worked out for them in recent history. You look over the last decade, even if you include Chip was more of a personality clash more than anything else, right? 2 10-6 records. Couple playoffs, a playoff position, and then it all just sort of went away. And they sort of went away from having one guy sort of call all the shots. I'm going to reserve my final thought on this process this year until I see what they actually do. Because here's what I think they're ultimately going to do. And I'm not surprised, guys, even though I wanted Brian Daboll. I love the connection to Jalen Hurts. I think there's things with Brian Daboll from a coaching standpoint that I would like to see sort of incorporated around Jalen Hurts in this offense, including what can be perceived as sort of hard coaching. I was enticed by all of those things as it pertains to Brian Daboll. But it seems like he's not interested in the job for whatever reason. That's fine. He wants to go to Tennessee. Loser. Go right ahead to Tennessee. They're not winning anything. Here's what I'll say, Spike. They can salvage this by still getting someone that doesn't mind working in concert with Nick Sirianni, meaning not that Nick's going to tell him what to do, but you at least have to make the coach feel like he's a part of this thing. Like, I think that's important. The working relationship with Nick Sirianni and whoever is going to be that offensive coordinator certainly needs to be one that is in harmony. And it can't be disruptive or divisive when it comes to internal battles and hierarchy in the coaching staff and players respecting certain coaches' authority, right? And so they have to be on the same page. But I also want someone who has some experience and play calling already. He has experience. He's managed games. I've said this all year long, and you'll remember this. I was never concerned about Kevin Patullo's X's and O's. That wasn't the thing with me. It was the sequence in which plays were being called. Are you calling things that are complementary or setting something else up for the next series or the next quarter or what have you? That's where the experience part comes in, where you can sort of, instead of calling plays in a moment and reacting to the in-game situation, you have the ability to think ahead of time and anticipate certain things. And so that helps Nick out in his coaching. That's why I think Kellen Moore was a big asset for Nick Sirianni, being an experienced play caller. Nick didn't have to get involved as much. And then thirdly, because I still believe this to be a huge part of my criteria moving forward with Jalen as my quarterback. And that's a lot of this is predicated around that. I'm assuming the Eagles are in lockstep with Jalen being here as their franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. And with that being said, I don't need someone with one foot out the door looking for another job somewhere else at the first sign of a phone call. I don't know if some of these guys, I'm not going to name names, but some of the guys that are out there, I don't know if they're really head coaching material. If you give a guy like Jim Bob Cooter, right? I don't know if he's going to be a head coach anywhere. He's been through the hiring cycle once or twice, and no one pegged him as that guy. But can he be a play caller, an experienced play caller, someone who's worked with Nick that could be on his staff like a Vic Fangio for at least 3, 4, 5 years possibly if things go well? Those are things that I'm looking for, and I think the Eagles can still land that type of hire, and this thing still turns out to be okay in the end. I know we want the big name. I know we want the splash. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, but it doesn't mean that the Eagles can't stick to a formula that has worked for them and sort of go with that, and they be successful moving forward. So I'm not as panicked as everyone else, even though, listen, when you don't get chosen by the ones you want, then it
doesn't feel good.
It's a blow to the ego. It is.
Yeah.
It is. And there is a sense that the job isn't as attractive, at least to those top candidates.
215-592-9494. Why do you think the top candidates didn't want to come to the Eagles, and does the search worry you? The last thing I'll say before we get to the phones is that I know that the Chip Kelly thing made a lasting impression, certainly on Howie and definitely on Jeffrey Lurie. And it clearly changed the way they think of coaches. But I would caution this. The way that they treat coaches is the way that Chip treated players. The way that they treat coaches is the way that Chip treated players. Chip treated players as you are just running my system. Right? You are replaceable. If it's not Sam Bradford, it'll be Nick Foles. If it's not Nick, whatever it is, if you just do exactly what I say, you are replaceable. And that was one of the things that rubbed all the high-level talent the wrong way. It rubbed LaShawn McCoy the wrong way. It rubbed Deshaun Jackson. It rubbed everybody in the building the wrong way. Mm-hmm. And the way that and it prevents you from getting high-level talent if you don't understand that different talent, has different needs and different rules,
sure.
and they're not replaceable.
Yeah. Yep.
And when they're trying to get coaches, if they want the top level guys, you can't treat them as replaceable. And I think they've done that with head coaches, and I think they've done it with coordinators.